A very warm welcome to the participant and viewers for the session on corporate social responsibility in India. In the next 40 minutes or so, me and my other esteemed colleagues will be talking about corporate philanthropy. We'll touch upon the evolution of corporate philanthropy in India. We'll also talk about some of the case studies. But most importantly, we will look at what kind of formidable partnerships the businesses can have with civil society to ensure that the businesses are operating with integrated purposes for a sustained change. Well, we love putting things in perspectives, and there are different ways of doing it. We take it through different frameworks or approaches. Even philanthropy, for that matter, if you look at it, has largely been operational in three different genres, so to say. There is an American way of corporate philanthropy, which is to look at charities and donations that protects the business interest. There is a European way of doing philanthropy, which is to work in a much more integrated processes, but to promote trade. Third, and most importantly, there is a Japanese way of doing philanthropy, which combines the principle of merchant, which is combined then with the social principles. If I get my pronunciation right, it's Shonindu, which is combined with the principles of Intoku. I hope the pronunciation is right. Now let's look at what's happening in India. The philanthropy, specifically the corporate philanthropy, have kind of gone in through 5 different phases. Now it's interesting to see that while we have seen many revolutions, right? Maybe let's say that there are 4 different revolutions or evolutions have happened in the history so far. But if you look at the corporate philanthropy, I would say there are broadly 5 phases or revolutions that have happened. And to my mind, and to the credit of the people who are there working in this sector, every phase has shown that there is a deeper understanding of the development challenges. And with those development challenges, the evolutions have happened. Now, to begin with, the first phase largely started in the pre-independence era, where the idea of charities came in from the perspective of fueling the ambition of independence. It was also largely driven by the religious affiliations. The purpose of it was mostly driven to feed the hungry and provide clothing for the poor. As we moved closer to the independence, the corporate philanthropy was led by the need for social reforms. There were powerful industrial houses that fueled this agenda. We saw the establishment of a lot of institutions, for example, educational institutions and healthcare institutions. The third phase, which began somewhere around 1960s and continued till 1990, saw the emergence of public sector undertakings. This was also a phase where nationalism was promoted and PSUs were representing the nationalistic agenda. The idea of PSUs taking the lead was to set up a business, along with that taking care of communities, which to my mind was about setting up community housing, community parks, common areas for meeting and sharing, and healthcare facilities. The fourth phase from 1990 to 2010 was a mix of community care, which again was led through the PSUs, but also the private sector played a large part in promoting livelihoods. Now, as we enter into the fifth phase, which to my mind is the most interesting phase, where we see a nuanced understanding of corporate philanthropy, we are seeing that not only the corporate philanthropy is pushed through a compliance agenda, at the same point of time, it is much more businesses that are interested in looking at environmental, social, and economic benefit of the people who are not just working with them, but society in general. The CSR in India is not new. We have seen that over a period of pre-independence era till now, the corporate social responsibilities have been an active part in various ways. It has taken a much more pronounced shape from 2013 onwards, where under the Companies Act, there was a law that mandated the companies to invest 2% of their net profit, which is an average of the last 3 years, to be invested in the social responsibilities or on socialistic agendas. Now let's see which are the companies that are mandated to invest 2% of their net profits. One, and by the way, these are not and, so every compliance agenda is either or. So any private company that has a net worth of 500 crores or more, 500 crores roughly translates to about 70 million US dollars. Any company has a turnover of about 100 crores or more, which is about 140, 150 US dollars, million US dollars, sorry, or a net profit of a company which is about 5 crores or more, which is about $500,000 US dollars or more. Now, these are the companies that are mandated by the law to invest 2% of their average net profits for the last 3 years to be invested in the social responsibilities. There is a whole list of what is eligible and what is not eligible. These are also available very openly in open domains. So one can run through it to see what qualifies to be. But let's look at what doesn't qualify as part of the CSR spending. So the 2% of the average net profit, if it is contributed towards the benefit of the employees and their families, is not considered as CSR spending. One-off events like awards or marathons or sponsorship of TV programs doesn't qualify. Any contribution to a political party also doesn't qualify for CSR spending. And if the activities are directly in link with their normal course of a company's business, doesn't qualify as a CSR spending. Now let's look at some of the data and see what's been the trend of CSR in India. You would see that from 2014 till about 2019, roughly about 4,800 million USD have been spent on CSR activities. The pace at which the companies are spending has also picked up. Over the last 5 years, let's say about 75% of the companies are actually spending 2% or more of their net profits. 41% have aligned their CSR activities with the Sustainable Development Goals. And among them, again, 2/3 are implemented in partnership with civil societies, which is a demonstration of the SDG 17. This slide provides you a very bird's eye view of what are the geographic areas in which most of the CSRs are being spent. The top 5 states that emerge are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Gujarat. Now, except Karnataka, which is at the southern part of India, you would find that the rest of the states are either in the northern part of India or on the western side of India. And there is an interesting facet that is emerging when you look at what are the states where most of the CSRs are being spent. Now, these are the states that has got highest number of corporates existing. These are also the states that contribute heavily, except Uttar Pradesh, to the GDP of India. And these are the states that also have got the highest number of manufacturing companies in India. So you find an interesting link between companies who are existing in those particular states, also investing in the states itself, rather than cutting across and investing in places where they are not operating in. Education, health and hygiene, and environment are attracting the largest amount of CSR funds. Education by far have surpassed all the other domains of spending. It's again coming back from the perspective that the CSRs have their own interest in what they want to promote, the issues that are closer to their heart, and something of a national interest as well. Some of the emerging domains of investments of CSR is around water and sanitation, agriculture, and livelihood promotion. Now, while we have looked at the evolution of philanthropy, we have looked at some of the critical data that is emerging. Let's look at how can a civil society and a CSR partnership, and what do they gain out of it? For a company to invest in CSR, they need the understanding of what's happening at the ground level, the understanding of social issues, and an element of can they strike a partnership with someone who can give them a reliable and a credible status on the ground. And that is where I think the civil society comes in heavily. Now, for a civil society, it's important to understand that corporates are a critical lever in the social development change. Rather than being antagonistic to them, it is in the best interest of civil society to join hands with the corporates and look at what best can be done for the communities. So from a CSR perspective, the engagement points are one, obviously, and the most obvious one is the financial support. Much more pragmatism in their approaches, and take the good learnings and the efficiency parameters that the corporates bring in into the social sector. Over the next 3 slides, I will take you to what Solidaridad in particular has done to work with the CSRs and have brought in some amount of sustained change. The first example I'm going to give you is Solidaridad's partnership with Coca-Cola Foundation. Now, as part of Coca-Cola CSR and their sustainable businesses, they want to promote sustainable sugarcane and sustainable sugar. Now, from that perspective, we partnered with the sugar company and created a program that not only improves the income of the farmer, but also looks at the water use efficiency. Over a period of last 8 years of our partnership, Solidaridad has been able to avoid around 500 billion liters of water use in agriculture and have been able to improve the income of farmers up to 30%. The sugarcane yields have gone up from an average of 45 tons per hectare to about 70 tons per hectare. Now, this has all been possible because of the agreement or a partnership which is there between Solidaridad as a civil society, the CSR funding partner, which is Coca-Cola, and the private sector, in this case, was DCM Shriram Limited. Let's take another example where Solidaridad, in partnership with Idea Vodafone, has ventured into a smart agriculture setup. Here, we are working with 50,000 small-scale farmers where they can benefit with the introduction of technology. We are looking at setting up sensors where we will use drones and AI for data analytics. We hope that the farmers, through these cutting-edge technologies and data, are able to make a choice of what they want to grow it sustainably, and in this whole process, not just they earn better income, at the same point of time, the soil quality also improves. Now, these are some of the examples where we have seen that when civil society join hands with the corporates using the CSR agenda, not only does the companies benefit, it is the farmers who benefit the most. It is the environment that gets benefited the most. For the next session, I will hand over to my other colleague who will talk about much more cases of how civil society have partnered with the corporates in driving the agenda forward. Thank you so much.